I'm joined now by a superstar new pack, the author and columnist Sir Simon Jenkins, TalkTV contributor Esther Krakue, and royal biographer Tom Bower. Welcome to all of you. Simon, what do you feel about this last 24 hours? What impact has it had on you?
It's very difficult to separate one's own personal feelings
Yes.
from what you sense the nation as a whole feels. I mean, it was expected. It was predicted, to put it mildly. You do feel that somehow the earth has changed.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I was walking in the Mall this afternoon, and it was eerie.
Yeah.
People were they looked a bit zombie-like as they wandered around. But this is an extraordinary event. It's the end of the Queen's long reign. More interesting in many ways. I think it's the beginning of a new one.
And what did you think when you watched Charles tonight, the first big speech, King Charles III? I mean, apart from anything else, having to do this when you've just lost your mother after having your mother for 70-odd years, that's a hell of a thing to have to do anyway. How did you think he did?
Well, having just heard Lynn Truss's speech,
right.
I'm afraid he won. It was a genuinely moving performance. I mean, he'd had a long while to prepare it, I know, but it was moving, I have to admit. I thought he did very well.
Yeah, I did. Tom, royal biographer, big book out at the moment about Meghan Markle, who we haven't seen in the last 24 hours. The word is she was going to go up to Balmoral with Harry yesterday, and people decided it wouldn't be a good idea, and so she stayed back in London, which is, of course, where Kate was as well. That interplay itself, I'll come to that in a moment, about what he does now, Charles the King, about his two sons who were at war, and indeed his own relationship with Harry, who got one line in the speech, which was a perfectly nice, warm line, but it was one line. And William, he lavished a lot of praise and titles on. What did you think of the speech from the position of our new monarch as one of the subjects?
Well, I was also the biographer of Charles 4 years ago.
Right.
And my book is very critical of him because he had a rather checkered career until recently. Not only many scandals and financial improprieties and things like that. I think in the last couple of years he's reformed himself dramatically. He has removed the controversy from his life. He's become far more serious, far more sober. And I think that reflected today. I mean, he knows that his past is acting as a deterrent or a potential deterrent from him being accepted as the monarch, and everything depends on public acceptance. So I think he did his best today, and he did it very well, to reassure people that he wasn't going to interfere, that he would not be controversial, that Camilla was an equal partner, that William was the next in line. I think, on the other hand, he also wanted to emphasise that he wasn't a transition monarch. He wants to make his mark on history.
Yes.
He wants to oversee the changes, but that he won't be vocal, he won't interfere.
What should he do? I mean, what is the logical, smart move for a new monarch in terms of taking the monarchy into a new era? What should he be doing?
Well, I think what he's got to do is what the Queen did, which is just to smile and encourage people and appear independent and impartial and appear at the...
But that's the same, isn't it? I mean,
No, until now, until a couple of years ago, he was constantly making speeches.
No, I understand that as Prince, but I mean, in terms of a monarch, if that's all he does is mimic what his mother did, is that enough, given all the speculation about the monarchy, its very future, the rumblings we've seen on some of the recent royal tours? Does he need to do more?
Yes, I mean, the Queen, he can't follow the Queen. I mean, clearly, it's not an act he could follow, it's a different era. He's got to somehow find a way in which the reign of Charles III will be seen in history as a transition moment, that in the end we are a different country and all the rest of it, and he symbolises the change. How he does it will be he'll choose the right venues, he'll make the right speeches, he'll make the right appointments, he'll go on royal tours which will improve the image of Britain. And in the end as well, he'll make sure that William supports him, which
We've got the front page of the Times has just dropped, I think, which is another very powerful front page. They've all been great. I think the Fleet Street's been fantastic in the last 24 hours. God save the King. And in a way, this shows you, doesn't it? Immediately, yesterday, whole front page of the Times, the Queen, who had just died. Today, God save the King. And Esther, I was very moved and struck by when he walked around outside Buckingham Palace, came down. He must have been, when he was driving down, thinking, I hope this goes well, this walkabout. Because if there was any kind of negativity, then it could have been a really big problem for him. You know, they can plan all they like for the Queen's death in terms of logistics. What you can't plan for is the public reaction. And I was really struck by how warm it was.
I was just going to say
how the crowd were very multicultural, old, young, black, white. I mean, people from all over the world. And they were all very pleased to see him and Camilla. And they were very warm. They began singing God Save the King. They even began singing the new national anthem with the new lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, he was very warm. I don't think he was very joyful, and
Yes.
there was a warm spirit about him, which I think is very commendable, you know, considering 24 hours beforehand he just lost his
What
mother.
do you think he has to do? You're younger than the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
What do you think he's got to do to try and be relevant? I think his problem is if it was King William, a lot of young people would be, oh, great, it's one of us, right? My daughter's reaction, she's 10, was, oh, he's really old.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't he, King Charles? And she's 10. Of course,
Yeah.
she thinks I'm really old. But, you know, he is in his 70s. He's not a young monarch at all. His mother was 26.
Yeah,
very, very different set of challenges, one of which is how to be relevant to young people.
I think this is the thing, because I was saying my generation doesn't really understand continuity and community in the same way that sort of the generations beforehand did. And those were the qualities that I think endeared the Queen to much of the country as well. I think what he really needs to focus on is being a continuity king, and really, again, being impartial, which he said in his speech, and slimming down the royal family, which he made very clear, but also kind of embracing the change that comes with these turbulent times. I think that's the only way he can appeal to my generation. And I think also, you know, focusing on instilling a sense of community and duty, because those were the legacies of his mother. And I think that's something that's generally very missing in my generation, but I would love to see, you know, that come back.
Simon, have you ever known a time in your lifetime where things have felt quite so jittery? And the reason I say that, coming out of a pretty devastating pandemic with all the fallout from that, a new war in Europe, and we've no idea how that's really going to play out. You've got a financial crisis of epic proportions, with her, Liz Truss, the new Prime Minister, pledging 100 billion yesterday, barely got noticed in the storm of the Queen's death. You put all this together, it's an unbelievable series of challenges for the Prime Minister, for the new King, and for the country.
Well, I mean, I remember the 70s. I can remember driving across Battersea Park and just seeing great areas of London blacked out.
Right.
I mean, with 2-day weeks, with rubbish piling up in Leicester Square.
Did it feel worse then than now?
It felt pretty bad then.
Yeah.
And also, inflation was 20%.
Right.
Now, I mean, you've got to be very careful. You don't just sort of play the old card. But it looks pretty bad now, I agree. It looks pretty bad, largely because of the Ukraine war. I mean, because of the rocketing up in fuel prices.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that'll come to an end within a year or so. And it'll sort of seem all right again. But reverting to King Charles, I think what's interesting there, I sort of disagree with Tom slightly. I think he's got to make a transition. He's got to be in charge.
To what? What would you want him to do?
To a new monarchy, he's talked about it privately in the past quite a lot. He needs to come right down to the king and the heir. That's the royal family, not all this clutter of entourage. He doesn't need 4 palaces in London. He doesn't need 4 homes in the country. The image of extravagance and sort of splendid celebrity, I honestly think those are over now.
Yeah.
He's got to get the thing down into simple terms. But the other side of the coin, I think, is going to be, he is not a silent man. He has got very strong views. I mean, I helped him with his architecture speeches once.
Yes.
He has got very strong
Can
views.
he keep his lip buttoned?
He will not. He will keep his lip buttoned in public. But the trouble is, he's going to be seeing. Can you imagine him meeting Liz Truss every week? I mean, there's going to be a nightmare in that room.
Yeah.
And I know he'll say, I shouldn't say this, but there'll always be the but.
I think you're right. I'm going to stop himself.